Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 2 of Hush Up and Listen. Today we are talking about barrier love, so we'll be talking about why barrier health matters, some top skin barrier disruptors, ingredients that can help heal the skin barrier, and what Hale & Hush products will help treat and maintain the skin barrier. We will also have an interview with Lisa Esquivel-Clark. She is the owner of the Spa Academy USA and uses Hale & Hush in her aesthetics school. She has used Hale & Hush for about 3 years now, and she'll be speaking on the importance of our skin barrier, some common misconceptions of the skin barrier, and how to improve an impaired barrier. I am personally so excited to get into this topic, so let's get started. Now remember that the skin barrier is the outermost layer of our skin. It's often described as a brick and mortar structure. So when you think of it that way, the skin cells are the bricks. The lipids, such as your ceramides, cholesterol, fatty acids, those are the mortar that's holding those skin cells together. And their main job is to protect us. So the barrier really keeps that hydration in. It keeps irritants, bacteria, pollutants, and allergens out. And when it's functioning well, our skin should feel balanced, calm, and comfortable. However, when the skin barrier is compromised, you'll often see skin symptoms of redness, tightness, stinging when applying products, flaking, breakouts that don't behave normally, increased reactivity to products that used to feel quote-unquote fine. And here's something important. Barrier damage doesn't always mean you have dry skin. Oily skin can have a compromised barrier, acne-prone skin can have a compromised barrier, and mature skin can have a compromised barrier. The barrier is foundational. Okay, you're going to hear that word a lot today in this episode, foundational. If your skin barrier is struggling, everything else becomes harder to treat and it will take a lot longer to see improvements with the skin. So let's go into some of the top barrier disruptors. What actually damages the skin barrier? The number one culprit we see as estheticians in the treatment room is overdoing it. So over-exfoliation, layering too many actives, and chasing those social media trends. And this all damages the skin barrier because when the skin is constantly being resurfaced, it's being stripped of those essential lipids, that mortar that's holding the skin cells together. The protective lipids start breaking down, and then we get what's called TOOL, transepidermal water loss. So our skin then starts to lose its hydration. Some other disruptors include things like your harsh cleansers, environmental stress like UV exposure and pollution, chemical exposure as well. Sometimes, for instance, if I use Clorox wipes and I don't use gloves, it really irritates my skin. So things like that can be considered chemical exposure. And even in the treatment room, sometimes we're dealing with Cavi wipes, we're dealing with barbicide, we're using a lot of products to sanitize and disinfect our space. So please make sure you're wearing gloves when you work with those kinds of chemicals because it can irritate the skin. And then we also have cold weather and dry indoor heat. Especially right now during the winter time. I'm hoping spring will come soon and warm the weather up a little bit, but cold weather and dry indoor heat can really dehydrate the skin and cause a lot of microinflammation, a lot of cracking and flaking and dryness. And stress and inflammation are actually also some skin barrier disruptors. So a lot of times that can really exacerbate things like eczema, acne, any kind of inflammatory skin condition. They can be really reactive to a lot of things, so that's also something to consider. And then certain medical treatments and medications, especially those strong topical prescriptions that dermatologists would give you, things like tretinoin, high prescription benzoyl peroxide, clindamycin, all of those things. And social media has made it so much easier to believe that more is better, stronger peels, higher percentages, daily exfoliation. But your skin isn't meant to be in a constant state of correction. Sometimes what it really needs is protection and nourishment. All right, everybody. So now that we've covered the basics of the skin barrier, I want to bring in today's guest, Lisa Esquivel-Clark. She is a licensed esthetician, educator, and passionate advocate for results-driven, skin-healthy treatments. She has been using Hale & Hush for about 3 years and truly loves our brand for its gentle yet effective formulations. And because of her trust in our line, she proudly uses Hale & Hush in her aesthetic school in their skincare kits, and she ensures that students learn with products that support and protect any kind of compromised skin. So, Lisa, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so well, thank you.
Awesome. So, before we begin, I know that was a little brief intro about you, but how did you come about using Hale & Hush?
Honestly, I met Chris and Shauna in the team at the Skin Games when I first was invited to be a international skincare judge for that competition. So I met a lot of people that year, and truly, from just speaking with Chris and Shauna, I was just like, wow, I wanted to know more. And then I found out more by the ingredients and the products and the everything about Hale and Hush and how much I loved their philosophy and why they produce the products that they produce. So I was enamored from day one. So I loved it so much that, I'm a school owner of the Spa Academy USA located in Lewisburg, North Carolina. And, we really pride ourselves on teaching our students the information, not just to memorize it, but to know it, to become knowledgeable, right? So after using another brand, a lot of students work on each other day in and day out when you're in school, and the barriers were getting compromised. So I said to myself, why we are not using Hale and Hush? So I got with Chris and I handpicked most of the products that we're going to use here at the school because of so much practicing. We really wanted to help, not hurt. And, so many people starting out know that if your barrier is compromised, you can't do any other treatments. But then, more importantly, when you're in school and you're working on each other and your classmates, that there's a lot of things that are happening and you don't want to compromise that barrier. So I fully switched to using Hale and Hush as my main and only line in the school for that particular reason. And just it's done so well. Like I would never switch to anything else, and I encourage other school owners like to literally do the same because it saves face.
So when I was in aesthetic school, we kind of had the opposite philosophy. My skin barrier was absolutely wrecked. I had acne, so I was always the guinea pig. And we would do every kind of treatment that you could think of on me. And so I love that you're incorporating more skin barrier health tactics into your schools and teaching these new estheticians that the skin barrier really does matter and it makes a difference.
Yes. And the most important thing about that too is like knowing for once they become licensed that, you have to start with an intact barrier, and a lot of times in schools, they're just, like you said, continuously doing these treatments because they have a job to do with treating you. But or learning all these different things. But at the same time, you don't want to compromise that and teach them that, you can't do those things until this is intact. And on a side note, that's one of the reasons why I just actually wrote a book called The Knowledgeable Esthetician versus the Robotic Esthetician. And that just goes into different practices like, are you really using your knowledge behind it, or are you just doing what the client wants you to do? And there is a big difference, and then the book goes into just kind of going into how you can become a more knowledgeable esthetician. Because I think at the end of the day, we all think we're knowledgeable, but are we really? So, we can always do better and do more research and, just be in it. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I had a calling to really write that book, because it's really, really important for foundational skills like the barrier function.
Yes, absolutely. I love everything that you just spoke about because I feel like, you know, a lot of people they get their license, they want to open up a studio immediately, but In my opinion, I think a lot of people should focus on a little bit of continuing education. So I really appreciate that you created this book, and I really want to look more into it after we're done with this episode.
Yeah, it hits a lot of important aspects, and again, continuing education is so, so important, especially as something as foundational as barrier health and like just a lot of foundational aspects that you do learn in aesthetic school, and sometimes it does boil down to the educator, are they even educated to the aspect of making sure you understand these foundational movements or information to then have somebody think about all these things that they need to think about when they're treating a client.
Right. Absolutely. And do you mind me asking, how long have you been a licensed esthetician for? Because you seem so experienced, and I think you speak so eloquently about the industry.
Oh, thank you. Actually, I've been licensed since 2004. I've got my license in Long Island, New York. And back in the day, for our practical, we had to go to the city and we actually did it on a live model. So that tells you kind of how old that I've been. I mean, not old, but, been in this industry. So it's going on, 23, 24 years. And, I keep going. There's always goals, there's always things like you have to show up and you have to research and you have to roll with the punches. And that's how you keep becoming or wanting to be a lifelong learner of all these things because there is so much information and you can go deep, deep, and deeper into lots of different subjects in the aesthetics industry.
Yes. Yeah, there's so many different niches that you could get into in the aesthetics industry, and that's honestly quite amazing. 2004. That's amazing. When did you start your school? When did you open up your school, and when did you feel like that was a, a good thing for you to do?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, I've done lots of things. I've kind of done it all. I used to own four day spas in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, the Triangle. And then before then, I'd always taught continuing education because I felt that that was my gift to reiterate this information and make it a part of an aesthetics career of somebody who wanted to be a true knowledgeable esthetician. So I think I've always had that gift. I just didn't know how to use it. But then fast forward when I was having all my spas, when I would hire estheticians, I had to like totally retrain them like for foundational knowledge, but also like hands-on skill. And so one day I was like, well, why don't I just teach? It kind of just hit me. I was like, this is amazing. I should be doing this. And this was after COVID. So, the governor had shut salons and spas down. So it was almost like a rebranding, rethinking moment for myself. Cause I was like, let me use my gift. Let me help others become the best esthetician that you can become just with the knowledge that I've had for so many years and the practices and the protocols and holding them to higher standards so they know what to do when they get out. So they're not like, I'm a baby esthetician. So somebody help me do this, somebody help me do that. They have the tools because we do have an advanced curriculum here. And more importantly than memorization, I want them to be knowledgeable, to know the information as a professional, as a licensed professional, not just a esthetician that can only work behind the chair. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I kind of wish I went to your school when I went to aesthetic
Some
school.
people do say that, but it's just I I know that these, future estheticians can be great. And like I am a, more of a structured, little bit of a tough teacher, but in the end, my students are so thankful. I mean, I have notes upon notes of cards and, Miss Lisa, I couldn't have done it without you. Like I'm their cheerleader. I can be their therapist one day. I'm like, you had a bad day. That's okay. Let's shake it off. Tomorrow's a new day. So, there's a lot of things that come into that. And I think too, because I'm a mom, I have 5 kids. So a lot of these younger estheticians that do come to school, they don't have a whole lot of like experience. Let's just say it like that, right? So I help them in so many different ways and they appreciate it.
I think that's so generous and kind of you to shape the future generation of aesthetics. I think that that's so impactful, and I'm sure your students are insanely blessed to have you. And so, moving into the topic of skin barrier, based off your experience, why do you think barrier damage is so underdiagnosed or misunderstood in skincare?
Honestly, I think it definitely starts with, again, the foundational knowledge of it all, right? Like, so when you were back in school, did they really emphasize or really break it down what the barrier function is and why it's important and not to do advanced treatments until that barrier is intact? So, for one, knowledge, right? So, for two, marketing and ads and stuff in YouTube University, as I call it, so many people just kind of follow these influencers that honestly, some of them don't even really know what they're talking about. It's almost like monkey see, monkey do, right?
Yes.
So the lack of that foundational education around like physiology, even layers of the skin, like in the epidermis to the dermis, do people really know these things even after they graduate? Because they probably don't, because it's just memorization, right? So for me, as an instructor, I think that that foundation needs to be more emphasized when you're in school, because if it was, you would know that taking that with you to your career path is going to help you get better results if your barrier is in fact intact. And if it's not, how to get it there.
Totally agree. And I think previously in most aesthetic schools, a lot of it was memorization to pass the state board, right? That's, I feel like, a very common standard in most schools. So I love that you approach it from a sort of physiology and functioning aspect to your students. And how often have you seen clients treating symptoms instead of addressing the barrier itself?
I mean, all of the time, right? I mean, like, honestly, it's more important than not. So, most clients are treating what they see or feel. So, if they're feeling breakouts, redness, pigment, dryness, without realizing those issues are often like a compromised barrier, they kind of over exfoliate or they layer products trying to fix it by like adding heavy moisturizers, but the barrier really never gets a chance to repair itself, right? So once you meet with a professional, an esthetician is what we do, right? So we, if you're knowledgeable enough to know that you have to fix that barrier, then your esthetician is going to be like, hey, let's fix this barrier to then address your concerns. And that's usually when they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So that's big.
Yeah. And kind of piggybacking off of that, how do you address someone or a client who maybe doesn't understand that they need to work on the skin barrier first? You know, they want to work on the pigmentation, they want to work on the scarring, they want to work on the acne first. How do you approach that sort of situation? How would you tell them this is what we need to do first?
Wow, that is like, doesn't that happen all the time, right? So this time day and age, the beauty industry is even more evolving, right? Like every year it evolves more and more and more and more. And people love vanity. So they're jumping to the dermatologists, to the doctors to get topicals galore, right? And it's like these dermatologists, who are in fact medical professionals, just are really quick to give these medications for wrinkles or whatever the case may be, right? But the consumer, not knowing, when the dermatologist or the medical professional not telling them like, hey, that's, you're using a lot of stuff. So to every medicine, there is a effect, right? Or a side effect.
Mm-hmm.
So while you're multiply layering all these things for, like, let's say for example acne, if they're saying wash with benzoyl peroxide, use your exfoliator, then use your retinoids for your wrinkles, like that is a lot. So especially if your barrier is not intact, those are all red flags. If someone's coming to you like, okay, so we shouldn't be using all these exfoliations and all these acids and chemicals if your barrier is not intact, because they're not doing anything. They're just making it worse. And then on top of it, you have all these side effects like anything I put on my face, it tingles, it burns. I thought it was normal. My skin is so tight, my skin is dry, it's itchy, it's so tight, and but they're using all of these things in not the right way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think there's definitely an acclimation period that you need to do with these really strong topicals. And unfortunately, I feel like that's not communicated very well. They're prescribed. I've had clients come in with high prescription benzoyl peroxide, high prescription clindamycin, and tretinoin all in one routine.
Exactly.
All they are told to use is CeraVe cleanser and moisturizer, but they were never told how to properly acclimate or incorporate these products into their routine. And unfortunately, they end up doing the opposite to the skin, which is making the skin barrier even worse and causing the symptoms to get a lot worse. So,
Exactly. And those are those red flags that we talked about. And on top of that, they don't even go into like, don't get waxed. Let's not even add that into the line of communication from doctors. And then that's how people get hurt. But then on the other hand, that's a knowledgeable esthetician because they should be asking, they should be doing these forms to kind of catch it, if you will, right?
right, exactly. So now that we've touched on some of the red flags, how some people may misunderstand skincare and the skin barrier, do you see a major difference in barrier damage between professional guided routines and self-guided routines? We kind of talked about this briefly, but is there a difference between these so-called over-the-counter routines and professional routines?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a 100% clear difference, right? Because, like, as professional estheticians, we're trained to look at this stuff and to kind of formulate our plan by our skin analysis, right? By looking, touching, seeing, feeling, and then looking at their intrinsic and extrinsic lifestyles, right? So, it's like you have to make sure that you're looking at all things, right? So when you're talking about a consumer, they don't know as much as we know for sure. And then they're going by, what's on TV, what their friends use, what works for somebody else. And then on top of it, maybe getting prescribed a medication and then not knowing even what to do or how to do it because again, the lack of education from the medical professionals, not even going into anything on how to use it and what to use. If this happens, don't use it this, or, try to use it 3 times a week. If it's too much, use it once a week. Like a lot of times they're not doing those things. So that's why the professional comes in and says, hey, your barrier is compromised right now because of all these things and then what you're using as a consumer because again you see it on TV, you see influencers, you see everybody that kind of has this idea of what you should be doing rather than going to a professional to get a professional guided routine that's actually going to help you.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. And as someone who has dealt with pretty severe acne for most of my adult life, I would go to all of the stores. I would go to Ulta, I would go to Sephora. I even saw a dermatologist, and I was just throwing so many different things onto my skin and not real. I was playing a guessing game with myself and the skin. And it was until I saw an esthetician that she actually took the time to analyze my skin, to feel the texture, to understand what's really going on, even in a holistic perspective, so a whole body perspective.
Right.
And after seeing her getting on a good professional skincare routine, I personally saw a difference in my own skin. And so I think that for people out there, if you have not tried seeing a professional, seeing a licensed esthetician, I at least encourage you to do it once to see how a professional can really help you, especially if you're struggling with getting on a set routine and you're still struggling with these skin conditions or skin symptoms after doing all of this guesswork. And Lisa, when would you say is the right time to reintroduce actives after the skin barrier has been healed?
So, a couple of signs that the barrier would be ready, right, is when they're saying their skin doesn't sting by even using a cleanser or a moisturizer or sunscreen, right? No, when it's not red anymore, when it's not tight, when it's not burning, when it's not flaking, when you actually put on moisturizer and it works, when you feel, comfortable, when your skin feels actually decent after you cleansed it, right? You'll see breakouts starting to kind of settle, irritation have settled. And then, so those are some really good signs that your barrier is intact and ready to kind of tackle your skincare goals if you have any more, like, maybe introducing your chemical peels or your anti-aging or your any of those kinds of things, advanced exfoliations. Then that's how you kind of know that your barrier is ready for those advanced things.
Yes, for sure. And it's kind of mind blowing, right? To think that, oh my gosh, I just had to show love. I just had to show care to my skin instead of continually breaking it down. And it's kind of just after you realize that fact, you're like, oh my gosh, this changes everything about how I do my skincare now. And do you think that barrier health alone can resolve certain skin concerns like acne, dry skin, tightness without any kind of aggressive treatments? Like, can someone just use a good skincare routine and not do any kind of aggressive treatments?
I mean, I think absolutely. In a lot of cases, it can. And again, it's not for everybody. Some people, might need other things, but in general, I would say absolutely it can, because when the barrier is restored, right, you have your natural inflammation that decreases, your hydration increases because your skin's ready to absorb and kind of be better, right? And then the skin can regulate itself. So, if that alone can improve with your concerns, why would you want to get anything else, right? So again, you have to start with the basics, right? Like, of doing your normal skincare routine to make sure you're starting with something. And a lot of times, if you do that, a lot of these issues will resolve on its own just from, again, giving your skin some love, taking care of it, and not jumping to a fast treatment that you think is going to work overnight.
Yeah, so more longevity as opposed to instantaneous results. That's also my philosophy when it comes to working with skin. So I feel like we're very aligned in a lot of ways in our approach to skincare. And why do you think Hale and Hush works so well for clients who feel like nothing has worked? They're constantly struggling with their skin. Why has Hale and Hush been so effective for these people?
I think too, along with Hale and Hush, because those products are amazing and how they're formulated. I mean, anybody can use those products, and most people don't even think that their barrier is compromised, right? So when you're starting back to the basics and you're giving up all these topicals and all these medications, and you're starting from the basic levels of skincare, which includes making sure that barrier is repaired, you're going to see differences. You're going to commit to keeping to do these skincare routines because you're seeing that it's starting to work. I mean, Hale and Hush products almost from like immediately you can feel a difference, and obviously it's going to take time, but if your client can just already feel a difference from their skin being irritated, I can't use this, I can't use anything because my face feels like it's burning, but when I used Hale and Hush, it didn't burn. So it's already immediately starting to calm down that inflammation and support the barrier recovery, and then rebuilding the tolerance of, you know, things not stinging your skin, or like being afraid of using new products because everything you tried was like burning and itching and, you know, all the things. So, and then once it finally stabilizes, like with that barrier, your skin is learning to just respond again, right? So it's like an amazing transformation. And then once that happens, there's a lot of things that maybe you don't need to work on that you thought you did because your
Mm-hmm.
skin felt that way.
100%. And I feel like clients think that burning and stinging is almost a standard, because when I have clients come in, sometimes they're like, "Ooh, it's burning, that means it's working." And I think that there's just a lack of education. Burning doesn't always mean that it's good. Burning is not a good thing at all. And so I think as an esthetician, you need to have that consultation with your clients. You need to tell them what to expect. And I think you need to just educate them on what a good skin barrier is. This is how it should feel, and this is how it should not feel. And so, what are your favorite Hale and Hush products for
Oh,
barrier repair and protection?
there's
Everything? Or
how dare you ask me that question? So, I mean, I know I love the Soothe Essence Serum, especially when you're trying to like repair that barrier. I mean, just from the reducing that inflammation and the sensitivity and the redness. I mean, redness is really a telltale sign of a compromised barrier, right? So one of them, one of the big ones. So to calm that down is amazing because, you know, as women, we don't want to walk around with red faces, right? Because we don't see that. We want to feel confident in our own skin. So, you know, it leads me into also the vital lipid lotion, right? Because that is like true barrier rebuilding of a moisturizer, right?
Mhm.
Because it replaces the essential lipids that restore the structure, and it's great for like dehydrated, fragile, or post treatment skin. Then you have the my super favorite, which is the Hale and Hush Remedy Rehab Oil. And the reason why I say that's my favorite is because I actually compete internationally and nationally for facial massage competitions. So,
Ooh, I want to
yes,
hear more about that. That sounds fun.
it's so fun. And I actually am a 4-time gold medal winner. So,
Congratulations.
I thank you. I was eighth in the world in 2024, out of Copenhagen, Denmark. I competed online, so I didn't go, but um, so I teach a class called The Art of Facial Rejuvenation, which I go into 19 plus moves, including trigger point, acupressure, facial cupping, so many things with intention and, you know, positioning, all the things. So I love Remedy Rehab Oil. I mainly love it obviously for the ingredients, but also like the barrier seal that it has and to reduce the transepidermal water loss, because it's like, and the slip. I mean, I could go on and on. So you literally use like one pump and it lasts me. I mean, I do a facial massage for 60 minutes, and two pumps will get me through the whole hour.
Oh, that is so cool.
And then they're leaving with like super hydrated skin and like, oh, they're loving it and it smells so good. I mean,
Yes.
I could go on about that product, but let me go to the next one. So, I do love the Quiet Wash. That is actually the first product that I've ever tried from Hale and Hush, and I was just really like, whoa! I didn't feel like it stripped my skin at all, you
Yeah.
know. And I have celiac disease, which just means I can't have gluten. So, you know, Hale and Hush is gluten free.
Yeah.
So, love that for me. And then I do love the biorelief powder. I mean, just to people to calm down that skin, and even post treatment of like, advanced treatments like, dermaplane, microderm, chem peels, like all the things. Like that is one of my go-tos as well. So many things. Um, Hush Hydrate Gel myself, that's a win. I mean, I love that, and because I do mix it with the biorelief powder.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, it's just I love it in my school because it's like, when we do these advanced treatments, like the students can be like, wow, like my skin doesn't feel like all the hype that I've heard, like, oh, your skin's gonna get so damaged in aesthetic school, like these girls are walking out with skin better than what they came in with, but also finding the knowledge behind it, right? To be like, whoa, if I did that to myself and my classmates, and now I'm doing it to clients. Now I'm going to do it to, paying clients once they graduate, So all of those products is just, for me, it's just repairing that barrier by calming the inflammation, restoring the water balance, replenishing the lipids, and protecting from external factors, and stress. So they're all like super amazing.
And I love that you set your students up for success. I don't think you realize how impactful that is to hear that your students walk out of school with just glowing, healthy skin. And there is always that pressure that as an esthetician or as a beauty provider, you have to have really nice skin in order to treat other people. But that's one of the reasons why a lot of times we join esthetician school is to learn more about the skin, why we have had issues ourselves, and how to help other people. And Hale and Hush is so user friendly. Honestly, I think it's great that newer estheticians are able to use Hale and Hush. And I love that our line has very little SKUs. We're a pretty small product line, but each product has a function. Every single product, it all focuses on the skin barrier, rebuilding that skin barrier.
Absolutely. That's like another reason why I love Hale and Hush, because there's not 100 products, right? Like the products are just targeted and do what they're supposed to do. Like, there's tons of lines that have like 100 plus products. And it's like, that's just more for the consumer to have to use and then combine. And then it's more for the esthetician to know each product in and out, just to transfer that knowledge so your consumer can understand why you're recommending this product. So it's just so many things. And then on top of that, like, I think the world of Chris Campbell, I mean, I think she has just been an amazing person to run her company of Hale and Hush, just by all the things that she does. She's such a giving person. And not only that, like she truly believes in herself and her brand. Like I truly believe in myself and my school to make sure that, it's that my students can understand lots of different things and lots of different perspectives, and knowing that I gave them my all so that they can have the best takeaways to start their career.
Yeah, and I mean it trickles down from the top, right? So
Absolutely.
you have the owner, same with Chris, and you have these philosophies, these missions, these goals. Then it comes down to formulation and then educating these professionals on how to use it on clients, and then they have success stories too. They're getting all these results. So it's really just, we're a brand focused on skin health. And I always say home care is so important. If you think about it, every single day you are treating your skin, ideally twice a day, morning and night. You're going to get the most results by doing that if you do your home care routine daily. Whereas, say, if you're going monthly for treatments, you're coming in 12 times a year at most.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, so using a good skincare routine, especially if you have Hale and Hush in your routine, your skin's going to improve so much. And do you have any other tips that people can use in order to obtain a healthy skin barrier or even maintain a healthy skin barrier?
I mean, I think obviously, people really need to revisit the foundational skills of barrier health and what it is. But then I also think that every, independent booth renter person, if you own a day spa, if you're an educator out of school, that you need to carry Hail and Hush. It's not like it's even an option because people come in all the time, like with compromised barriers, and they don't even know it, and sometimes professionals don't even know it. So it's like you need to have that one before you can jump into all these actives, like super actives. And you need to have a fine balance of actives and barrier repair. And that's what Hail and Hush gives you, right? So you gotta have that balance, if you will. So I just say that to anybody out there that if you haven't tried Hail and Hush, you definitely need to try it for yourself because you will be blown away. And maybe your barrier's not intact. And then you can tell people about it by helping them repair their barrier so that if you do any advanced treatments, if necessary, even after the repair, that you can go in a healthy way.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much that also goes into all these advanced treatments. There's a lot of prep for it, and of course there's a lot of post-care for it. So it's not so much that your esthetician is making you do all these steps and preventing you from getting a treatment done or whatever. It's more so that we want you to be prepared for an advanced treatment.
Absolutely. By product and by knowledge, right? Because I think so many times too, estheticians don't, if they know it, they don't know how to explain it. And then the other side is if they don't know it and they're trying to make their client believe that what they're saying is true.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for finding a good esthetician? Like someone that clients can research on their own to find someone that they trust to help them with their skin? I know that might be a loaded question, but
I mean, honestly, it probably would take some research, right? So, because it's like, just because you went to a certain school doesn't mean that you're the best or the worst, right? Because it's what you put into it, what you get out of it. So, that's a really hard question. But I think if you do enough due diligence and research and kind of ask questions, like don't be afraid to ask questions. A lot of times people be like, well, how long have you been licensed? Like, what certifications do you hold? Like, and that makes a difference too when you're on the surface trying to find a knowledgeable esthetician that can get you those results by looking into your pretty much your whole case study, if you will, right? Because if you're having acne and you want it cleared, well, it's a progress. It's not going to happen overnight, but you need a knowledgeable esthetician to kind of formulate that plan, right? So it's really important just to kind of, I would say, just do your research, right? Look at reviews and look at maybe they have a lookbook or, before and afters, right? Because that speaks volumes as well. So, and hoping they didn't just get it off the internet, right? So,
yeah.
because this day and age, what can you can get everything from the internet, right?
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
so it's kind of a loaded question, but just at the end of the day, you want to do your research, right? And it's that esthetician's job to build that trust by results and by information, by knowledge. That's pretty much what I would say about trying to find a knowledgeable esthetician in your area.
Yes, I agree. And I'm sorry I dropped a loaded question on you.
No, that's okay. I mean, I'm used to it. People ask me loaded questions all the time. So
Well, Lisa, do you have anything else to share with us?
the last thing I would say about kind of education is that, if you're kind of figuring out if you think you're a knowledgeable esthetician or robotic esthetician, is that maybe you should check out my book. It's a great read. It really kind of goes through like if you're not a knowledgeable esthetician, how to really obtain it by doing certain things, right? And then holding yourself to a higher standard, being a professional or what a professional means to you. So my book can be found on Amazon. It can be found on Apple Books, Google Play, and Barnes and Noble. I'm also on social media. So on Instagram, it's just Lisa Esquivel Clark. And also on Facebook, the same thing, Lisa Esquivel-Clark. I do post a lot of information. I'm starting to make more videos because I do have a lot to say about this industry and the good, bad, ugly, and indifferent. So um, that's kind of a little bit about me. And I always have new goals and new projects coming out. So just stay tuned.
Lisa, thank you so much for joining us on this second episode of Hush Up and Listen. You know, it's been wonderful getting to speak with you. This is actually our first time really ever talking, but I feel like we align so much with how we view the industry and how we treat the skin. So I'd love to pick your brain a lot more moving
Yeah.
forward.
Anytime you need me on a guest, as a guest, I mean, I got a lot to say about lots of different subjects. So, yes, well, thank you for having me. I super, super appreciate it.
Oh, you are so welcome. And Lisa, thank you again. And we'll catch you around on socials.
All right, take care.
So I hope you've learned a little bit more about why the skin barrier is so important. I do want to quickly talk about ingredients. So when the skin barrier is compromised, the goal is not to continually attack the skin. It's to calm it, to repair it, and to protect it. So, highly recommend as an esthetician to look for ingredients that reduce inflammation, redness, and irritation, support lipid replenishment, add more hydration to the skin, encourage healing, and strengthens resilience over time. You're looking for products that are going to contain soothing botanicals, peptides, antioxidants, and barrier supporting lipids. And then, of course, sunscreen is always important to continually protect the skin from any UV damage. And anti inflammatory ingredients are especially important. Redness and irritation are inflammatory signals to our body. We need to focus on calming down that inflammation before it continues to wreak havoc on our skin. So some of our favorite ingredients to work with that are anti-inflammatory here at Hale and Hush is Mirabilis jalapa extract, calamine, beta glucan, giant knotweed extract, turmeric root extract, and aloe. That's just the surface of anti inflammatory ingredients that we like to work with. But remember that formulation matters. It's not just about one hero ingredient. In my opinion, it's about how all those ingredients work together in a very balanced and thoughtful but effective way. And I also want to reiterate that being gentle to your skin doesn't mean that you're being ineffective to it. It's more so about being strategic with that client's healing process and what you need to do first, which Lisa mentioned is really focusing on that skin barrier before you try any high concentrated acids or any kind of chemical peels, any advanced treatments. And here at Hale and Hush, remember, we kind of talked about this in the first episode as well. Barrier support is the foundation of our company and our products. So our formulations are really designed to specifically help sensitive and health challenged skin. So that means they're really created to soothe, strengthen, and protect your skin. And you can practically use anything in our line for barrier support, but some of our staples often include and are not limited to quiet wash, refined polish, soothe essence, mist me and fresh breeze, relief bio powder, any of our moisturizers, and Lisa raved about remedy rehab oil, so that's included as well. We also have a hero product, Hush Hydrate Mask, also known as Hush Hydrate Gel, and then broad spectrum SPF 30. So these products are especially powerful post-procedure during any kind of seasonal transitions or when you feel like nothing else is really working. And one of the biggest shifts that we see as professionals is that when you focus on rebuilding the barrier with our products first, everything else becomes more effective later on. Now, if there's one takeaway from today's episode, it would be that barrier repair isn't a trend, it's not optional. Again, say it with me, it's foundational. And when we protect and strengthen the skin barrier, we are creating the right environment for real skin health to occur. Thank you again to Lisa for sharing your insight today, and thank you for listening to Hush Up and Listen. We are so appreciative of the feedback that you've given us so far about our podcast, so we can't wait to continue creating more. In our next episode, it's scheduled to release on March 30th, same time, and we'll continue building on this conversation. The topic for episode 3 is about sensitive versus sensitized skin. So stay tuned for that episode, and don't forget that if you're a professional, check out our website, www.halenhush.com, for all of the classes that we have. Highly suggest, if you're new to the line, taking our product knowledge class. That is a great way to start with us, and checking out our resources tab on our website, because it has all of our protocols, all of our product data sheets, and material safety data sheets, all free for you to access if you have an account with us. But you're also going to find all the shows that we're going to be at this whole year, and then of course shopping our products. Until next time, Hushies, show your skin a little barrier love, because healthy skin starts with a healthy barrier. Bye guys, I'll see you in episode 3. Have a good one and be well.